I'm Becky Meagher, and welcome to Transitions, Body, Mind, Spirit. Transitions. How many transitions do you have in your life? I like to use the metaphor of triathlon, something that I do. For instance, first you swim, and then you get in the transition area, and then you get on your bike and transition, and then you run. And that is a great metaphor for life. And I welcome an amazing guest here, Scott McConnell. This is show 2. In case you missed show 1, he did an amazing feat last year. He bicycled in a non-supported race from Canada to Mexico. And he won in his range of having one cycle thing, when we'll explain better than what I'm saying. And today he is going to be telling us about all his amazing equipment and how he did this. So welcome, Scott McConnell. Glad you're here. Tell us the name of the race that you're in.
It's called the Tour Divide.
Tour Divide.
Tour Divide. And it's a race from Banff, starts in Banff, Alberta, Canada, and it goes down to Antelope Wells, New Mexico, which is the U.S.-Mexico border. So and it just tracks the Continental Divide.
And it took how many days for you?
20 days and 21 hours.
And it was straight through?
Straight through, yeah, straight through. The race route went through Steamboat Springs.
Yeah.
So we went back to the road through the motherland for a minute, but I'm a big fan of riding Thai bikes. So again, single speed, so you can kind of see. Here I only have one gear, so that's one of the big.
One gear. That's pretty amazing.
So that's one of the big decisions, is trying to figure out what gear. So when you're going to ride one gear, what gear are you going to ride? So whether you're going to gear for the climbs, you're going to gear for the flats, or you're going to try and do a mix in between. So I probably had one of the easier gears out of a lot of the single speeders, but I gear for the climbs, and with the thought being that as we're pedaling up all these mountains and climbs, you know, just trying to save the legs a little bit instead of trying to grunt up or trying to just mash up, because these legs are getting abused day in and
so this is the bike.
Out. So I decided, so I did the race on a single speed. So what that means is there's only one gear up front and then one cog in the back. So there's no shifting involved. I don't have to worry about derail. And I guess why I decided to do that is I don't have to worry about derailleurs. I don't have to worry about shifting. When it gets muddy and wet and things like that, I don't have to worry about anything getting gunked up. It just, the single speed performs well through that. The big things, the decisions when you decide to go single speed on the Divide, the big decision is just what gearing you're going to use. So I geared more for the climbs, so it's a little easier to spin. On the flip side, that means when you get into the flats or flat section, then you got to spin at a super high cadence to keep the same speed. But nonetheless, it worked out well for me. I think the gear is pretty close. So I definitely enjoyed it. The other thing I decided to use was just a steel cog in the rear, just to help. Actually, this is the cog that I used on the Divide. It just held up really well. I was a little concerned that aluminum may have some issues with under the power and the stress and the weight of the bike and things like that. So that's kind of, that's the big thing. The other thing is went with the so you'll see some different setups, but I like the mountain bike handles, which is just the flat bars and with the bar end. So that's one of the big things too, is just having different hand positions. So when I used all of them, and then then being able to get into the air bars and just kind of get off your hands a little bit, because just getting off your hands is there's a lot of jarring and bumping around.
Typically, how many hours each day were you on that bike?
Ooh, wow. I think so if we did the math, I probably slept like 3 to 5 hours a night. So if I wasn't sleeping then, or eating, then I was pedaling. So
at least 10 hours a day?
Oh, at least. Yeah, probably close to, I'll say, between 15 and 20 hours a day sometimes. And did pull an all-nighter, and another night I only slept like 30 minutes. So there's a lot of pedaling. So but anyway, yeah. So spent a lot of time on this bike. I think one of the other things a lot of people look at too is the saddle. To me, that was one of the big decisions. I went with a nice, comfortable saddle. So if you're going to be sitting on it for a long time, you want to make sure it's comfortable. But then, as far as the other, probably the key thing, you kind of see all the bags, and that's in each of the bags. compartmentalized. And kind of the different, to kind of keep the bike organized. And we'll go through that in a little bit, go through that more detail in a little bit. But one of the other things too is, again, kind of the big things is navigation. So how are you going to, how do you know where to go? So I kind of did the hybrid approach. I used the maps and followed the cue sheets, which is, I used that as my primary. So I knew where to go, and you kind of, so I got them set up here. I don't know, here's some of the maps, but basically what it is they've got these cues on here, and these cues actually tell you where to go. So for example, say, you know, road narrows or go left between two pine trees or things like that. So and you just follow the route. So I've got those set up in these waterproof, and actually this is waterproof, but I got these set up, and these are actually iPad cases. That's what I used. And then I actually used, so I used two of them. So the second one I had is kind of my cheat sheet, just my miles to the next major town, or miles to next major resupply point, or where's the next bike shop. I mean, there's like 500-mile stretch between some of the bike shops. So so I kind of kept all my notes there. And then I had a GPS as well. So I did have that, and I kind of used those to kind of compare to each other to make sure that I was en route, because I did a couple times I did miss the I did miss the mark. So so I think the other thing too, as you can see, is, so one of the things is wildlife. Obviously wildlife. So one of the big things is a bear. So what are you gonna do about bear? So I had my trusty bear spray, nice and handy right here as a trigger, or for any unruly people that are watching the race, I guess. Because I mean, that's one of the things to consider too, is just rider safety, because you're out there and you don't know who else is out there. You're in the middle of nowhere. There's not a lot of extra company. So anyway. And then I had these things called mountain feed bags, and typically actually I'd have these lined with Snickers bars. So I ate over, I think I stopped counting after I ate 100 Snickers bars. So I ate well over 100 Snickers bars on this during this race. I mean, I did mix it up. I mean, there's almond Snickers, peanut butter Snickers, and so forth. But needless to say, it was so that's where I stored all those. I think we can go into the next thing is this front bag. I'm not sure if we want to make room or but I can kind of go into it. So I kept my sleeping stuff in this front bag, and again, so when I was stopped for a night, so these are waterproof bags. So one of the things you got really good at was just organizing. Just how are you going to organize? So this is what's called a bivy sack. As you can see, basically it's basically just like a one-person tent. So if you're just thinking a sleeping bag, so that's what so it's waterproof. So that's what I
think we're going to need to put that
in front.
Here.
All right, so this is what I slept on each night. Is I just set this up, and this is kind of protecting me from the elements. So then I go into, and then I just kind of stuff in order. So now I had a sleeping pad, and this is a big Agnes sleeping pad. It's a little bigger. It's a full sleeping pad. It's called, the brand's a Big Agnes. But so I'd blow this up. And slide into my bivy sack. But one of the things I planned on, or what I went for, is I felt that it was important to get a good quality sleep each night. So when you're sleeping, you're laying down, make sure, even if it is only for 3 hours, make sure it's a good quality sleep. So so I also had in here a couple, just these emergency blankets. So they're like these just $3 emergency blankets, but there's some nights where you got caught out, it was getting down into the 20s. So so when you're in the middle of nowhere, when you're by yourself, I wanted to, so I had a couple of these in there.
Were they very effective?
They are.
Really?
What they do is they just keep all of your heat in. So I find that they work fantastic. But the problem is that then you start sweating, and you kind of, they're good for temporary, but. And then, so what I did, just so this was fast each night, I just kind of packed this in order. So basically I could just rip it out. Because by this time my energy is running out and I'm getting ready to go to sleep. So, so this is called a, so I got this is an REI brand. It's a 32-degree bag. It's a down sleeping bag, and I just slide it into my sleeping pad on top of the, slide it into the bivy sack on top of the sleeping pad. But that kept me reasonably warm. A couple nights I did have to use the emergency. I would get the emergency blanket inside. Let's see, anything else in here? So also I kept my glasses, so I kept all things like that together in this front bag that everything's easily accessible.
Those are the glasses you put over your contacts.
These would be to help protect against the sun, since we were exposed so often, and these were just the glasses just so I could see.
So, when you didn't have your contacts
exactly, when I didn't have my contacts in. Then I also kept in here. Then I also brought extra contacts, needles.
Needles.
Just in case you needed, and just in case. One of the things, it doesn't weigh anything, but if I were to slice a tire,
yes,
then so I could sew it back together, or at least sew it well enough that I can get to a bike shop to get a new tire, or get to a post office that I can have a tire shipped to me or something like that. So I just kept all that, just some miscellaneous little stuff together, easily accessible. This is kind of fun. This is actually one thing that I debated was whether to bring a lock, just because sometimes we are in town. I mean, there's a lot of stuff on this bike, and if someone takes it, your ride's gone.
The end of the race.
And then your race is done. So I just went back and forth, and it's just that peace of mind. But so I was in Banff. I got there. One of the guys I shared a room with, a guy named Scott Thinkman and Sean Putnam, and both were fantastic guys. And I knew Scott before the race too, so that was a lot of fun. But so Sean and I kind of set out in Banff to make our own. So this is a homemade lock. We just got some cable because we couldn't find a lock. But anyway, you see, it's not very elaborate or very strong. But I just call it my keep honest people honest lock.
There you go. Did you use it very much?
I used it like twice. So, but anyway, it really didn't. It doesn't weigh much. So, but yeah, next time I would not take it. Then I just kept the other thing. I brought some chemical heat with me as well. Because some of those nights when you're out there, it's just for my mind, it's just help. Risk mitigation. I just don't want to, for safety standpoint, I'd rather carry the extra weight, and be careful than not.
Right.
Yeah, because my main goal was, because again, it kind of comes down to, my main goal is to finish. So, I mean, it's just as far as finishing, everything else that happened with that was totally unexpected. So, but when I put my gear together, it was finished first. Well, yeah, it's meant to finish because you got to finish first before any of that else kind of just takes care of itself. But and this is also fun. This was gold as well. So some of the places when you get into town, what this is so when you're leaving town, I mean, if you got a 150-mile stretch or something like that with no resupply or no options, just carrying stuff on your bike. So what this enabled me to do was it just gave me this worked as a backpack. So this is a backpack. So,
wow.
So that I could put, so it's just so easy.
It's a backpack?
Yeah, actually I still got wrappers. But yeah, so then it doubles as a backpack, so then I can put extra food or water or chips, so at least I can get to so as I get out of town, or if I'm planning on setting up camp like 20 miles out of town, then I can, I'll get food, and then as I'm setting up, getting ready to go to sleep, I'll, enjoy one last meal before I go to sleep. But this helped me get extra stuff on my bike for those long stretches where where I could not fit food anywhere. And you got really good at packing. You started, and tricks of the trade, like for example, one of the tricks we learned too is potato chips are amazing. They got their carbs, they got your salt, they got things like that. And you just open up a large bag of potato chips and you just smash them. And after you smash them into crumbs, you can get it like the size of your fist. You got a whole bag of potato chips. So again, it's all about getting calories on your bike. So what else do we have? Then I actually kept an extra towel. Again, trying to keep the hands clean when you're using. Yeah, when you're using. When you're you're trying to get some sort of hygiene, at least with your contacts anyway. Then this is kind of fun. So one of the questions people ask is how do you keep your stuff charged? Because that's one of the big things. So for lights, GPS, and other things. So most of the stuff I went with the approach of using batteries. But so this is battery operated and things battery operated. But for my phone and my iPod was my bonk breaker. So when it starts getting like you're exhausted, you just want that extra, kind of coming out of that low. Yeah, it kind of helps you out. But so what this is so my uncle, I think, and my dad helped a little bit too, is built this for me. So it's just you put batteries in here. So this is battery operated as well. So again, so it's kind of going with the battery theme. So I don't have to rely on electric outlets because there's not many electric outlets in the middle of nowhere. So so then I could just use AA batteries, and I could use this to charge up everything. So,
brilliant.
So I don't have to worry about, so that helped alleviate that. Again, batteries aren't light, but nonetheless, I didn't have to worry about finding an electric outlet. And that's that bag.
Wow.
So for my sleeping, so what I decided to do is there's just the big decision points of just what do you want to do for sleeping. So some people, they actually brought an actual tent. Do you use a sleeping pad, not a sleeping pad? So this is what I did. So out of all those decisions, this is what I ended up deciding. So I went with the bivy sack. It's a waterproof bivy sack that I got at REI. I think it's called the Aurora. It's by Outdoor Research. It's Gore-Tex, so it's breathable. So that worked out fantastic. Then I went with a full-length sleeping pad. So what I thought is, and it was so comfortable. So what this also helped do is helped insulate me from the ground. So on those extremely cold nights, as I remember there's one specifically in Wyoming, but when it got super freezing, this helped insulate me from the ground. So it actually helped keep me warmer, keep me really warm. So I mean, some people go with the save weight, they'll go with a sleeping pad, like a 3/4 sleeping pad or a 2/3, but I like the full one myself. Again, I was going for good quality comfort, or maybe not comfort, but at least the best quality sleep that I could get. Then I went with the sleeping pad, or the sleeping bag. The sleeping bag I used it's down, and I think it's an REI brand. I think it's called the Flash, I believe, but it packs up super small, super tight, and it's rated for 32 degrees. So what I learned is that 32 degrees doesn't mean, it's not rated 32 degrees, that's where you're going to be comfortable, that's where you're going to survive. So thankfully I went with I brought some emergency blankets to help keep me warm, and my sleeping pad as well. So that all, and with the bivy sack, that created a really good warm environment for me. So keep it those warm nights. And then my ticket was, I need a pillow to sleep. Some people, to save weight, what they end up doing is just using their stinky clothes. But I decided to spring for the pillow. So it was only like 1.9 ounces, so I took the weight penalty on that one. So this bag is called a gas tank. It's from Revelate Designs, but what I use here, this is where I kept a lot of my food as well, and it's where I kept things like my phone and things like that. Not that these were a lot, but I also had a camera that I kept in here as well. So I did try and take some pictures along the route, but when it kind of went for, and I ended up was more focused on as much on racing as taking pictures. That kind of changed a little bit, but I didn't get many pictures. But that's where I kind of kept all that stuff, is just readily available, and I could get to it as I'm riding, so I didn't have to like get into any bags. So that's what I kept here. Is just kept a lot of stuff that I used on a regular basis. So for example, the suntan lotion, that was big. Bear whistle, so for wildlife. So that's just, again, one of those things that definitely, I use this a lot just for preventative measures, because that's what they say, if you don't surprise the wildlife, you're in a much better place. Then obviously, medicated chamois cream. That's one of those, anything I could do to help prevent any problems. Exactly. I did not have any problems, thankfully.
No chafing?
No, none actually.
Very good. That's amazing.
I'm pretty stoked about that. That could have been a bad day. But chain lube. So I use the Pro Gold chain lube. I think they're based in Georgia, which is really cool. That worked great. Insect repellent, I actually did not use this.
You didn't
Surprisingly,
find insects?
it wasn't, we did, but I don't know, I just didn't use it. I don't know why. But so I carried it for fun. Then chapstick, and one of the things, this is actually one of my favorite, I got this riding, as we were talking, riding with Brett. So some things we were having trouble with was the zippers jamming up, just as you're getting so much dirt and dust and grime, and basically just a mess. So it's starting to stick, and I actually cut myself trying to rip this close. But trick is, if you take your chapstick and just rub it on the seams, it starts working like butter. So anyway, so now I keep a chapstick on hand just for my zippers. You don't use
it on your lips?
I did. So I had one for lips, one for my zipper. But then just kept extra tube in there. I think the other thing also is I just had extra rope too. I had no idea what I may need it for, but I just packed a few extra things. But actually I do know, thankfully I did have it, because one of the things I was having is just your Garmin's don't have sometimes they'll jump off your bike and you don't want to lose your GPS. So anyway, I just cut off a small piece, tied that on, didn't have a problem with that leaving. So, and then one of the things I ran into just just the Achilles. The Achilles was really starting to get tender.
Your heel.
And the heel, which is the Achilles, the Achilles is right here on the back of your foot. So to help alleviate some of the pressure and the stress, just taped up my Achilles. So just kept my foot basically at the same angle. So there wasn't any, so I wasn't moving my heel or anything like that. So so it wasn't aggravating it anymore. So anyway, so that was huge. Yeah, you have to be your own clinician, your own nutritionist, bike mechanic, all the above. You got to do it, everything. And then actually I did have some extra tablets too, just for if the water looked really bad, then I would. And some wipes and just a few other things like that. Over on the other side is where I kept a lot of my bike mechanic stuff, bike repair stuff, just tubes, extra chain links.
Did you have many breakdowns?
Thankfully, I only had one major mechanical, and that was I wrecked, and when I wrecked, I ended up bending a bolt on my brake caliper. So, and I did not have that. I had an extra bolt for almost everything on my bike, except for, it turns out, that one. So what ended up happening is actually from on my bike, so I took one of my inner tubes. I took this washer from the inner tube and put it on the bend of the bolt, and that got it so the bolt was tight against the caliper, so that held until I was able to get to a bike shop and get that fixed. So anyway, that was kind of fun. But when you're out there, only thing you can do is just look at your bike and see, do I have anything on there that I can fix it? So that was kind of a fun MacGyver moment. But in the middle, this is where I kept my lights. It's another big thing. Some people, that's a big decision point, is what lights you're going to run. I went with the Lupine Pica light. It runs about 45 hours on one battery, which is fantastic. So that's one of the big concerns, just getting enough lights. And then it goes up to 900 lumens, which is like.
Where were those lights?
Oh, I put them on my helmet. So I kept it up here because as you're looking, you're looking down, getting your directions. You're trying to find out where you need to go. So I kept it on my helmet. Some people use what's called a dyno hub, so it actually, is generating power as your wheel's spinning. It generates a ton of light. It looks awesome, but I decided to go this. I prefer this. I like the 45 hours. So I took 2 batteries, so I had 90 hours of light. So I really didn't have any issues at all. This here, well, actually, here's my bear bell. Again, anything you can do just to. But after a while, I just left it on. When I got out of bear country, I just left it on because then I knew my bag was still on my bike. Not that it's going to fall off, but I didn't have to worry about it. And this is how people were able to watch us. This is called a spot tracker. So this is the GPS that was sending up signals to the satellite to send to this website, so people could actually watch and follow us online, so they knew exactly where we were. So that's how people could watch the race. So anyway, so that was just it's battery operated as well. Let me get into the back here. This is where I did a lot of my clothes. One of the big things that you really need to consider is rain and setting up your rain gear. So this isn't as packable as some rain gear, but I went with the Gore-Tex, the Gore brand raincoat. So it's pretty high end. So when we did get some of those torrential downpours, it kept me dry. But then
kept you dry.
And then it's also doubled as my winter coat, because it kept me warm. Because one of the things with a really nice raincoat is it doesn't breathe as well, which actually was beneficial to me when we were in some of the mountains and it was very cold. So it actually kept me warm. It kept the heat in some. So anyway, so rain gear is very important, especially on the divide. Let's see what else we got here. These are toe warmers. I wore them for like half a day. I would not take them again. Gloves are big. So one thing that was a big concern was just keeping my hands and fingers warm, so I didn't have any problems. So I actually went with actual ski gloves, and then I actually used these liners. I only used them a couple times, but I was glad I had them. So the other strategy that I went with is to stay warm was wool. I used a lot of wool. So I just had different levels of wool. So this is a super thick layer, long sleeve layer, so when it got really cold, that was like my last line of support. Let's see. Then I went with wool socks. The socks were from made Swiftwick.
Swiftwick.
Which is actually based out of here in Brentwood, Tennessee. So big fan, love the socks, and actually I wore their 12s. Like this is their knee length sock, the 12s. It actually is a compression sock as well. So I wore this like 19 out of the 20 some days.
Could you wash them?
No, but that's why I went with wool too, because wool is naturally antimicrobial or antibacterial or whatever it is. So so actually did help with minimize those type of issues. But then being the 12, this also works. It's also a compression sock. So at night, the one night, so like the second or third night, I decided not to wear my socks. I took my socks off, and my legs felt awful. So every night since then, I just left my socks on, and they felt fantastic. So anyway, I wore them many days straight, and they held up. And then just your standard knee warmers.
What about biking shorts?
Biking shorts.
The same shorts
thing.
all the way through?
Same shorts. So I went with the wool shorts as well.
Wool biking shorts?
I did, because they're warmer, and in my experience, for me, I think they just hold their shape better. Like sometimes for regular bike shorts, they seem like stretch, or they just don't feel as comfortable after a while. So I went with these are the Ibex wool shorts. Absolutely loved them, and they held up, and they did fantastic, and I don't have any issues. So
wow, no chafing.
I'm glad about that. Yeah, exactly. What else we got in here? Anyway, so this is just another same thing, just a little lighter.
And I think you have this shirt.
Yeah, then this is the jersey. So again, just a little shout out to a Tennessee company. They're actually made in Cleveland, Tennessee. So anyway, that's why I'm really excited, is just representing Tennessee and a Tennessee brand. And so anyway, go Swiftwick. Let's see what else we got. Then the other thing is waterproof socks. So that's where instead of using the shoe cover, they didn't work as well. So these kind of, instead of taking big bulky shoe covers, that you'll see some, I just used the waterproof socks, and they kept my feet warm and dry. So very excited I brought those. Let's see, then rain pants, again, same gore. These also doubled when it got cold or wet outside, or especially when it really got cold, then I put these on. These help keep me warm. And then just stock with inner tubes back here. So, then actually an emergency bivvy that I actually use this as well. So this, I actually put this on the outside of my sleeping bag. So I was going to survive.
Wow.
So I think that's about it.
All right. Amazing, amazing. And if you just tuned in, we also have the first show, which has even more information too. But this was the technical thing. So Scott, thank you very much for being a guest. That's Transitions, Body, Mind, Spirit. I'm Becky Meagher. Thank you.